Disclaimer. This video contains intense and frightening content meant for entertainment purposes. It may include scenes that some viewers may find disturbing or unsettling. We recommend viewer discretion, especially for those sensitive to horror themes or with underlying medical conditions that could be affected by intense content. The events portrayed in this video are entirely fictional, and any resemblance to real-life situations or individuals is coincidental. We do not endorse harmful or illegal activities. By continuing to watch, you acknowledge the content warning and proceed at your own discretion.
Story 1. The Clock in Room 237. I had always been drawn to the eerie and unexplained. So when I heard about St. Andrew's Hospital, an abandoned institution notorious for its haunted history, I couldn't resist the temptation to explore it for myself. Armed with a flashlight and a camera, I ventured into the decaying structure one moonless night. The air inside was thick with a musty, oppressive feeling. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old floorboards. As I made my way through the darkened corridors, I couldn't help but wonder about the countless patients who had suffered within these walls. My curiosity led me to room 237. It was said to be the epicenter of the hospital's paranormal activity. The door creaked open with a bone-chilling squeal, revealing a room frozen in time. A single tattered curtain swayed in the draught from a broken window. In the corner, an old, ornate grandfather clock stood, its pendulum swinging ominously. I approached the clock and couldn't help but notice its strange markings. Instead of traditional numbers, it had cryptic symbols etched onto its face. I reached out to touch it, and as my fingers brushed against the cold brass, a voice whispered in my ear, "Tick-tock, the time is near." Startled, I turned to see a spectral figure in a nurse's uniform. Her eyes were hollow, her voice filled with anguish. "You must help me," she implored. My heart raced as I nodded, unable to speak. The nurse pointed to the clock and said, "It never stops. Every night at the stroke of midnight, it begins to chime, and with each toll, a soul is taken." I watched in horror as the clock's hands slowly approached midnight. When the first chime echoed through the room, a chilling wind swept through the chamber. The nurse's form began to dissipate, and she begged me to break the curse. Desperation gave me courage, and I reached for the clock's pendulum. With all my strength, I swung it back and forth, faster and faster, until it broke free from its mountings. The clock fell silent, and the nurse's spirit let out a sigh of relief before vanishing into the ether. I stumbled out of room 237, the weight of what I had witnessed heavy on my shoulders. As I made my way back through the hospital's eerie corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had truly encountered the supernatural that night. To this day, I wonder about the countless souls that may have been spared thanks to my intervention. The clock in room 237 may have stopped, but the memories of that night continue to haunt me, a constant reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead. Story 2. The Heartbeat in the Shadows. I had always been a skeptic when it came to ghost stories. That changed when I took a job as a night security guard at the old Oak Ridge Hospital, a decaying medical facility with a dark past. It was the graveyard shift, and I was alone in the dimly lit building. My only companions were the flickering fluorescent lights and the echoing footsteps of my own uncertainty. One night, as I made my rounds, I heard it, a faint, rhythmic thumping. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, but the noise persisted, growing louder with each step I took. I followed the sound down a long, dark corridor. The thumping led me to a locked door at the end of the hall, marked restricted area. I fumbled for my keys and managed to unlock it. Inside, the room was shrouded in darkness. I shone my flashlight around, revealing a disturbing sight. A rusted, antique heart monitor sat in the corner, its screen filled with jagged lines. I approached the machine and noticed that it was still running despite its age. The rhythmic thumping was now deafening, and I realized it was coming from the monitor itself. As I leaned closer, I could see a faint, ghostly figure on the screen, lying in a hospital bed. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. My flashlight flickered and died. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone, but it too refused to illuminate. I was enveloped in an inky blackness, and the relentless thumping grew louder. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. From the darkness, a voice whispered, "Help me!" The plea was filled with agony, and it sent chills down my spine. I had to escape this cursed room, but I couldn't find the door in the darkness. Then the room seemed to come alive with ghostly apparitions. Shadowy figures surrounded me, their eyes glowing with malevolence. They reached out, their icy fingers grazing my skin. The thumping, now thunderous, echoed through the room, resonating in my chest. In a last-ditch effort to escape, I shouted, "I don't belong here!" The room shuddered, and the figures recoiled. The heart monitor's thumping reached a frenzied crescendo, and then silence. When I regained my senses, I found myself outside the room, the door securely locked. My flashlight and phone were operational once more. I had no explanation for what had just occurred. I left the hospital that night, never to return, but the echoes of that experience haunted my dreams. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had glimpsed into the realm of the restless spirits, trapped in an eternal cycle of torment. Years later, I learned the dark truth about Oak Ridge Hospital. It was a place where patients had been subjected to gruesome experiments, their lives cut short in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. The heart monitor in the restricted room had once been used to record the agonizing final moments of those unfortunate souls. And as for the ghostly figures, I can only hope that by uttering those words, "I don't belong here," I helped free them from their torment, setting their restless spirits free. But I can never be certain. The only thing I know for sure is that some mysteries are better left unsolved, and some places are better left unexplored. Story 3. The Desolate Echoes of Mercyville Hospital. I always had a fascination with abandoned places, but Mercyville Hospital was different. It was said to be haunted, a place where the living dared not tread. The rumors surrounding the hospital's closure were grim, but my curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to explore the decaying structure. One cold and moonless night, I arrived at the hospital. It loomed before me like a colossal tombstone, casting eerie shadows across the overgrown courtyard. The front doors were ajar, inviting me to step into the darkness within. As I entered, a bone-chilling breeze swept through the corridor, carrying with it the scent of decay. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing shattered windows and peeling wallpaper. I wandered through the deserted hallways, each step echoing like a whisper from the past. The hospital was a labyrinth, and I was its unwitting prisoner. It was easy to lose track of time in that place, where the past and present seemed to blur together. My heart raced as I reached the 4th floor. The rumors had mentioned strange occurrences in the pediatrics ward, and I couldn't resist investigating. The door to the ward creaked open, revealing a room frozen in time. Toys lay scattered across the floor, their colors faded with age. Small, empty beds lined the room, and above each, a hand-painted mural of playful animals had grown grotesque with time. The air was suffused with the faint sound of children's laughter, as if the spirits of the long-departed patients still lingered. I moved deeper into the ward, my flashlight beam trembling. In the corner, I spotted a rusted metal crib. It stood alone, seemingly untouched by time. As I approached, I heard the soft, haunting lullaby of a music box. I reached out to touch it, and the melody ceased abruptly. Suddenly, the crib began to rock back and forth, as if moved by an invisible hand. The room grew colder, and I could see my breath in the air. Panic coursed through me as I stumbled backward. That's when I heard the voice, a child's voice coming from the crib. "Play with me," it whispered. Terrified, I fled the room, but the laughter followed me down the corridor, echoing in my ears like a sinister taunt. I had seen enough. It was time to leave the accursed place. As I made my way to the exit, I noticed a faded plaque on the wall. It read, Mercyville Hospital, dedicated to healing and hope. I couldn't help but wonder what had transpired within those walls to turn a place of healing into a house of horrors. I stepped back into the moonlit courtyard, relieved to be free of the hospital's grasp, but as I turned to look one last time at the forsaken building, I saw the silhouette of a child standing in an upper window, waving goodbye. I never returned to Mercyville Hospital, but the memory of that night still haunts my dreams. It was a place where the past refused to stay buried, where the echoes of suffering still reverberated through the abandoned halls. It was a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred, and I had ventured too close to the edge.